Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Future Dimensions 360. As you guys know, in our last tutorial, we had learned about the very basics of use of hooks, why we need hooks, what are hooks, and how React.js provide us hooks. Let's go ahead in today's tutorial and talk about useState hooks, the very basic and very first hook we will be learning by today. Let's imagine, guys, you are writing a component of a React.js application with functional component. Moving forward, you will be needing a state to store some sort of data. Before hooks, you will be turning your functional component directly to class-based component to maintain the hooks, to maintain the state, sorry. So in case of hooks, or when you are going to use hooks, you will not be changing, or you will not need to change any of the component, functional component to class-based component to use state. By using useState hook or by using state hook, you can easily maintain, manage, and manipulate the state in your React.js project. Let's go ahead and try to learn use state hook. In our project, I had created a normal npx React Create App application in the very basics, and I had started, and my server is up and running. Let me remove all the code from the app.js file, and here it is, my empty page appeared. What I will do here is I will create first a class-based component, and I'll take a look into state hook, and I will let you guys to learn state hook by using counter or by creating a counter component. First of all, we will create a class component, and we will create a counter in class component, and with the help of that we will be moving forward towards functional component and state hook. If you guys are new to React, so don't worry about it. You will be learning both of them in the same tutorial. Let's go ahead and try to create one new folder called components. And inside components, I'll create a new file called count class counter .js. By using RCE React class component code snippet, I had created a class counter. Inside it, I had created a button that will say click X times. So keep it in mind for creating a counter. Let me import that one in my app.js file as well. Class counter, I had imported it, and see click X time is appearing. So keep it in mind, for creating a counter, you need three different steps. First step is creating a component that you had created already. Second step is to create a state. So I'll create a state and save a counter variable with initial value that is 0 in my case. And the third step is to create a method that will handle that will handle to update the value of your counter. So in my case, I'll create a counter named as increment counter. I'll create a method with increment counter that will help me to increment the value. This dot set state, I will be calling a set state method from the class component, and I will update the counter. How? I'll say counter equals to this dot counter plus 1. What I'll do here is I'll do restructuring of my counter by using curly braces. I'll say counter equals to this dot state, and here I will replace the X with counter, and on click event I will pass an handler that is called this dot increment counter. That's it. I will move forward to my, it's saying none value. This dot counter is not accessible here. What I will do is I will pass the callback function that will accept the previous value of the state. I will say previous state, and here I will say previous state dot counter. Previous state is already a counter, and expected function what while sorry, I'll say here is return should be like this. Yep. And let me go ahead and try to reload the project. You guys can see my counter is working very fine. What I had done is I had created a class component. Inside a class component, I had created a constructor. Inside constructor, I had saved a state variable in counter variable in the state, and then a method called increment counter, an arrow function with this method I had created with arrow function. I had used this dot set state method. By using set state method, what I had done is I had created a function inside set state method or passed a callback function that take previous state as an input, and what I had written is the updated state. What updated state is saying counter and previous state dot counter plus one. Always increment the value of plus 1 and take the current value from the previous state. That in method I had passed to increment counter, and I had create a destructuring here, state destructuring, and I had passed an X counter here. So this is very normal. Three steps we have to do for creating a counter. First step is create a component. Second step is set in the state and variable in the state or counter variable should be set up in the state. And third method is or third step is to create a method that will handle the increment. Let's move forward and try to create same one with the help of hook. I will say hook counter dot js rfc react functional component. Inside that functional component I will save the button and directly I will say click x times. So what I want here is I want to click this button and the increment counter will work. So first step is implemented, that is creation of component. Now second step is to state the counter to save the counter variable in the state. That how we will do is by using state hook, that is use state. State is nothing or hook is nothing but just a function. Hook is just a function. So let me see that hook is just a function. What it will take as an input, it will take an argument of initial value. So initial value for our counter is 0. We will pass to this function as initial value, and this function will return two different values as an output. What are those two values? I will say those two values are counter itself and a method that will help you to set the value of that counter. These are the two returned values from the useState hook. UseState, what it will say is nothing but just a function, the hook for useState, that will take an initial value as an increment and return two different values. That is the current state of the counter or anything, any XYZ you want, and setting of a method that will set up the value in that state variable. So in our case, it's counter. We had given the name counter. You can give any name, whatever you want. So what I have to do here is in place of X, I have to change it with counter, and in button on click, what I have to do is I have to create an arrow function that will help me to call this set counter. Set counter is just a method that will take a value. Which value? The value that will be set it up. Like the current value, for example, initially the current value is 0. Whenever we will click, the current value will be passed and plus 1 will be added to that value. So this method will help you to set up the value in this current variable. Let's go ahead and try to import it in our class component and see what are the results. I will say hook counter I had imported. I'll go to my I will go to my browser and try to click. See, as expected, it works very fine. Let me go ahead and summarize what we have done. useState, we had imported a hook useState. useState is nothing but just a function that will take an argument of initial value and return two different value. What we have done here is we had done destructuring of returned value. If you don't know the destructuring, you can just pause the value and move forward to learn the destructuring. It might take 2 to 5 minutes from you to learn destructuring of arrays or objects, and you can come back and start watching the video again. Set counter and counter. Counter is the current value for the state. Counter and set counter is a method that is returned back from the state that will help you to set up the value in the counter. Then we had returned directly the math in the return method. We are returning our JSX. In that one, we had written one button. The math value for the button is, or the text for the button is click how many times the counter, that is the current value for the counter. And other than this, on click we had passed an arrow function that is helping us to call this set counter method, and we are giving the current counter value and plus one. Whatever the argument you will pass in this set counter function, that will be set it up in the current counter variable. So this is what it will be actually. Let's go ahead and see it's working very fine. So let me move forward to my PowerPoint and show you some sort of rules for the hook. There are two main rules for the hooks you must follow. Number one rule is only call hooks at the top level. Okay, don't call any kind of hook inside loop, condition, or nested function or anything. Second rule is only call hooks from the functional component. You are not allowed to call any kind of hook from the class component. Call them from within the React functional component with not just any regular functional component or any regular function. Sorry, I had write this component mistakenly. Please forget about it. Just you can say not any regular function or class component. You cannot call the hooks from there. You can call them only from the functional component. That's pretty much for today's tutorial. I hope you guys like it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe our channel. Thank you. Allah Hafiz.